Love on the line. Should your boss make you sign a prenup?
Live from CNBC Global Headquarters, this is On the Money.
Dating on the dotted line. Should couples sign a prenup before starting up an office affair? I told you earlier, Paul Wolfowitz hanging in there at the World Bank. The bank's board adjourned for the day, taking no decision. They'll reconvene tomorrow, but Wolfowitz's attorney vows Wolfowitz won't throw in the towel. It all stems from the uproar over his relationship with his girlfriend, who also works at the bank, and it's focusing new attention on affairs at the office. Scott Cohn is on the money tonight with a look at the power of love at work.
It's perfect fodder for a sitcom called The Office.
I need you to sign these, Michael. It's a waiver of some of your rights. It releases the company in the event that our relationship, in your opinion or in reality, interferes with work.
Awesome. I'm going to frame mine.
But it's no joke. Most of us might not be so thrilled with the idea of a so-called love contract, but corporate America is slowly realizing the legal fallout from office affairs can be as costly as sexual harassment litigation. The Wolfowitz scandal, says one expert, is a belated wake-up call.
You take an institution like the World Bank, people have been trying to bring it down for years, and now, merely by mishandling an office romance, the organization is on its knees.
And the Wolfowitz situation pales in comparison to other cubicle couplings. Boeing CEO Harry Stonecipher flew out the door, fired when emails exposed his affair with a coworker. Walmart fired its ad chief, Julie Rome, over allegations she had a relationship with a subordinate. And the real estate world still remembers how Queen of Mean Leona Helmsley hooked up with her multimillionaire boss, Harry, even though he was married at the time.
Something like half of all Americans say that they have had some kind of an office romance. And to make it even juicier, 17% of them in a survey done earlier this year said they'd been caught in a tryst at work, either in the boardroom or the kitchen.
A carefully written consensual relationship agreement, which has each party admit that they're going out or staying in, can help protect the 75% of companies that have no office romance policies.
Typically, we use a love contract when the employer becomes aware of an existing relationship in the workplace.
Many office love connections do have happy endings, but others are disastrous.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Maybe the worst case scenario when it comes to dallying at your desk. On the Money, Scott Cohn, CNBC.
Joining us tonight to hash out the romantic relationships in the workplace. That was pretty funny. Susan Batley is a leadership psychologist and a CEO of Batley Performance Consulting. And Doug Wigdor is a labor attorney and partner at the firm Thompson, Wigdor and Gilly. Doug, let me start with you. Would a love contract help insulate a company from the legal problems that come along with a little sex at work?
Well, let's just say this. Consensual sexual relationships in the workplace is not only frisky business, it's risky business.
How long were you waiting to say that? That was pretty good.
And the bottom line is this, is that an individual cannot give what's called a prospective waiver, which means that they can't waive things that are going to happen in advance. So while a company can have a contract, a love contract, really what they're trying to do is document that the employee knows the sexual harassment policies.
But it's not going to help that much, really, if a lawsuit comes up. Hey, Susan, you heard the stats. 50% of people surveyed admit that they've been involved at work. 17% say they've been caught in a, quote, tryst at work. Is there any way to stop this? I mean, it seems like it's pretty pervasive.
Well, I think, first of all, let's look at the good news in this and the realities that many people meet their future mates at work. I mean, we're all working so many hours, and if you think about it, the people who we're sharing time with, we're sharing our values and our professions with, are the people we're at work with. So I think that really, I find that employers and companies don't want to be the love police. What they really want to protect are aspects or charges of favoritism on the one side, and on the other side, retaliation or reprisals if a relationship goes sour.
Well, so, the practical problem, though, is that most relationships, unfortunately, don't end in marriage, and those that do end in marriage don't necessarily stay in marriage. And you can imagine how difficult it is for a business to run their business when people are trying to avoid each other.
And Doug, I mean, that doesn't even, the other great point that they were making is a love contract would do nothing to protect a company against lawsuits from a third party. I mean, according to a California Supreme Court decision, third parties can now sue if they think the boss is giving favors to his lover, right?
Well,
There's nothing you can do about that.
That might be true in California, but I'm handling a case here in New York where the executive of the company was having a consensual relationship with a woman. She was getting more money than other people. That is not, believe it or not, against the law in New York because you were treating men and women equally. It's called the paramour's exception to gender discrimination. You're treating men and women the same.
Interesting. All right. Well, Susan, that lawyer that we saw in that story is quoted as saying that he's negotiated contracts between threesomes at offices, married coworkers. It all sounds very awkward. How would someone breach the subject if they wanted to present a love contract?
Well, I think, too, the real first question is there a dual relationship? That is, do you have a supervisor in which you're having this relationship? Because I think these love contracts are really about power and influence and where there's a power differential. And so really the focus is a dual relationship where there is a subordinate on the one hand and a supervisor on the other. And so really those are, I think, the areas first where you're focusing. Otherwise, I think when you've got peers and colleagues and all of those things, that there's less of a risk. And I think it really is about broaching it in terms of what's going to support the reputation of the company going forward and what's going to maintain the perception, because as leaders, you have to keep the perception of fairness if you're going to be effective. And when that's compromised, as we've seen with the conflict of interest with Wolfowitz, you really lose your credibility as a leader. Exactly.
All right. Thanks to both of you for joining us tonight. Up next.